Have you ever thought about what happens when someone really, truly wrongs you? I mean, beyond just saying sorry, how does the law actually step in to fix things? Well, today we're going to dive right into the world of civil damages here in Malaysia. It's a whole system designed to bring justice and, restore a sense of balance when things have gone wrong. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big idea behind damages, then break down the two main ways you can be compensated. From there, we'll get into when the law decides punishment is needed, look at some real-world examples, and wrap it all up by seeing how Malaysia handles this whole thing. All right, let's kick things off with the most important point. When it comes to civil damages, the main goal is not to make someone rich. It's not like winning the lottery because something bad happened. No, it's about something way more fundamental, making things right again. So just think about that. If someone causes you to lose something, money, health, whatever, what's the very first thing the law should try to do? The answer, it turns out, is baked into a legal idea that's been with us for a very long time. And here it is. It's a fancy Latin phrase, restitutio in integrum. But don't let that scare you. It's really the cornerstone of all compensation law. And the idea is actually super simple, but really powerful. The goal is to try and put you back in the exact same spot you were in before the whole mess happened. It's about making you whole again, or at least as whole as money can make you. Okay, so this whole idea of making you whole is where things get interesting, because the law splits it into two big categories. And the main difference between them? It all comes down to one question. Can you slap an exact price tag on the loss? So on one hand, you got what's called general damages. This is for all the stuff you can't really calculate with a spreadsheet, right? Things like pain, suffering, mental anguish, or damage to your good name. How do you put a number on that? It's tough. And then on the other hand, you have special damages. These are the easy ones to count. We're talking about medical bills, car repair costs, the actual income you lost, basically anything you have a receipt for. Now, when it comes to those special damages, the courts are super strict. There's no guesswork allowed. You can't just walk in and say, yeah, I think I spent about this much on treatment. Nope. The burden of proof is all on you. That means you better have your paperwork in order. Receipts, invoices, salary slips, you name it. Every single cent needs to be proven. And this quote from Justice Zainun Ali really hits the nail on the head. Special damages must be specifically pleaded and strictly proven. Basically, if you can't prove it on paper, the court isn't going to give it to you. It's a really important rule that keeps things fair and stops people from just making numbers up. Okay, but let's shift gears a little. What happens when the person who wronged you wasn't just careless, but their behavior was, well, outrageous? What if just paying for the damages doesn't feel like real justice at all? This is exactly where the law has to go beyond just balancing the books. It acknowledges that some actions are just so awful, so malicious, or so oppressive that they require a much bigger, stronger reaction from the courts. And that brings us to two really interesting legal tools: aggravated damages and exemplary damages. Now, look closely at this. Aggravated damages are still about compensation. They're extra money for the victim to cover things like humiliation or extra distress caused by how the defendant behaved. But exemplary damages, that's a whole different ballgame. They're not about the victim at all. They are 100% about punishing the defendant and sending a message to everyone else. Don't even think about doing this. And believe me, courts do not just hand these out like candy. Exemplary damages, sometimes called punitive damages, are saved for only the most extreme cases of bad conduct. It's basically the legal system's way of planting a flag and yelling, this kind of behavior is absolutely not okay in our society. So that's the theory. But how does this all look in a real courtroom? Let's check out a couple of actual Malaysian cases to see these ideas come to life. Take the case of Dr. Hari Krishnan. Here, it wasn't just about a medical mistake. What really mattered was what happened after. The defendant tried to cover up the error and had this really dismissive attitude. That caused a ton of extra suffering for the patient. So the court saw that and said, okay, that extra harm deserves extra compensation, and awarded aggravated damages. Now, for a really big one, check out this number, 100,000 ringgit. This was from a huge landmark sexual harassment case. The federal court awarded RM $100,000 in exemplary damages. And remember what we just said about exemplary damages? This money wasn't meant to compensate the victim for their loss. Not at all. This was purely a punishment. It was meant to punish the defendant for abusing their power and to send a crystal clear signal to every workplace out there that this kind of behavior will have serious consequences.
So, with all that in mind, you might be wondering, where does Malaysia stand on the global stage? Is our approach to this stuff more aggressive or more on the cautious side?
Well, you could say Malaysia takes a pretty balanced conservative approach. We're a bit more willing to award these punitive damages than, say, the UK or especially Singapore, which is very restrictive. But we are nowhere near as liberal as the US, where you hear about these absolutely massive, multi-million dollar punitive damage awards. So we're kind of carving out our own middle ground.
Okay, let's pull it all together. What are the big things to remember? First, civil damages are about making things right, not making someone rich. Second, the legal system has 4 main tools in its toolbox: general, special, aggravated, and exemplary damages. Each one has a very specific job to do, from simple compensation to outright punishment. And finally, Malaysia's system is pretty conservative, trying to find that sweet spot between delivering justice and considering our own local economic realities.
And that really leaves us with a big final question to chew on. How does a legal system strike that perfect balance? The balance between making a victim whole again and the duty to punish someone who did wrong. It's like walking a tightrope, and it's something judges have to figure out every single day. There's really no simple answer, and that's probably the biggest challenge at the very heart of civil justice.